It's Wednesday, September 9. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. As of Wednesday morning, Jamaica's COVID-19 death toll stands at 36. This after the island recorded 2 additional COVID-19 related deaths on Tuesday, as well as 140 new positive cases. Of the 140, there are 78 females and 58 males. The number of confirmed cases is now 3,323. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, one of the deaths is a 77-year-old woman from St. Catherine. The other is a 61-year-old male, also from St. Catherine. The ministry says both patients had underlying health conditions, notably diabetes, renal disease, hypertension, and high cholesterol. There are currently 2,218 active cases, including 25 who are moderately ill and 8 who are critically ill. The government is being urged by the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, JHTA, to include COVID-19 rapid testing in its arsenal against the pandemic. They are calling for a parallel testing strategy that incorporates both the polymerase chain reaction PCR and rapid antigen testing for the novel coronavirus COVID-19. PCR testing alone has reportedly proven expensive and presents many challenges. We get more in this report.
In a statement Tuesday, the JHTA president made the case for rapid testing. Robinson argued that the science has advanced significantly to now include rapid antigen testing that produces results in as little as 15 minutes. On the contrary, Robinson says while traditional PCR testing has proven accurate up to now, the process is onerous and the wait time too long, and according to him, many of our active cases may have been the result of this gap. Speaking at a press conference on Monday at Jamaica House, Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton gave a cautious response to the issue of rapid testing.
There are many discoveries. Modern science is trying hard to play catch-up with COVID-19. And every week we get correspondence from persons or entities across the world, from different countries, that they have this new breaking technology that is a 10-minute test, a 5-minute test, a 1-hour test. You know, some of this kind of discovery, as is the case with the vaccine, is encouraging, but modern medicine tends to be very conservative to the extent that they embrace a technology that is going to determine on the human anatomy, for fear that if they make errors, it could have consequences. There is an ethics committee, for example, in the Ministry of Health and Wellness that has to approve a number of these most latest approaches. And that ethics committee comprises of technical experts who will take a new discovery, assess it, look at the approvals that have been had, whether in the country of origin, in the US, the federal, FDA, CDC, or in Europe. They don't just accept everything that is presented and then impose it on the population, because that would be, frankly speaking, dangerous. And so there are new inventions out there which we are looking at, but it's difficult to just impose them until you have sufficient approvals based on sufficient trials and so on. And that's an ongoing process.
The PCR test shows if a person has an active coronavirus infection, while an antigen test looks for antibodies that are developed by the immune system in response to the virus. At the end of July, COVID-19 rapid antibody testing was approved for professional use in the United Kingdom and the European Union, while the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Defense on August 27 awarded a contract for $760 million to Abbott Laboratories for delivery of 150 million rapid COVID-19 antigen tests called Binax Now. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The National Export-Import Bank of Jamaica, or EXIM Bank, is now accepting applications for its coronavirus COVID-19 care tourism grant. Applications for the $1.2 billion grant program will close on September 30. Businesses interested in applying for the grant can access the application form and other relevant details at eximbankja.com. That's eximbankja.com. The tourism grant is part of the government's COVID-19 allocation of resources for employees care program.
The government of Jamaica is injecting 1.2 billion into the EXIM Bank for the grants, which the Minister of Finance announced, and that will allow, again, for the small and medium enterprises to be able to access between 5 million and, in our case now, 25 million, because with all of that support at EXIM Bank, and I'm sure EXIM is going to make an announcement later on, I'm told today, to indicate the full extent of what they will be able to do at this low interest rate of 4.5% over a 7-year period for repayment.
Eligible entities include businesses such as attractions, bike and car rentals, guest houses, hotels, travel agencies, and villas. They must be licensed by the Jamaica Tourist Board or registered with the Ministry of Tourism. Ratings agency Fitch has downgraded Jamaica's economic outlook from a positive B+ to stable. In April, Fitch had assigned a positive B+ rating. 5 months later, this positive outlook has been downgraded to stable. The downgrade is due to what Fitch describes as a likely contraction in foreign currency income from tourism, remittances, and alumina exports. The ratings agency notes that local banks are liquid and can provide credit to the government. External financing is available, with interest rates having dropped after spiking between March and April. However, Fitch stated that the government debt to GDP ratio remains above ratings peers. World Physiotherapy Day was observed on September 8. World Physiotherapy Week is being observed under the theme Physiotherapists' Role in Helping People Recover After COVID-19. The Kingston Public and Victoria Jubilee Hospitals hosted a series of virtual sessions as part of activities to observe World Physiotherapy Week from September 7 to 13. Members of the KPH Physiotherapy 23-member team are featured in 15-second videos titled The Face Behind the Mask, Rehabilitating on the Front Line, reflecting on their careers in the field. On September 10, the unit will host a webinar featuring presentations by physiotherapists from the University Hospital of the West Indies, the National Chest Hospital, among others, on the important role of physiotherapy in COVID-19 treatment. The webinar is open to the public and is free of cost. Former educator and parliamentarian Jeanette Grant-Woodham died on Tuesday, September 8. She broke many glass ceilings in a career defined by a litany of firsts. In paying tribute, Prime Minister Andrew Holness hailed her as a trailblazer and an outstanding Jamaican who did the impossible. Our reporter Marlon Samuels explores her life and legacy.
Described as a trailblazing educator and parliamentarian who broke the glass ceiling for women, Jeanette Grant-Woodham had a series of firsts. A career educator, Mrs. Grant-Woodham was in 1970 appointed the first principal of the Tivoli Gardens High School in Kingston. In 1984, she became the first female president of the Senate of Jamaica. She also served as Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Industry. The zenith of her career in the international arena is when she delivered Jamaica's policy statement to the United Nations in 1987 and 1988. Her track record in the area of gender issues, both nationally and regionally, is significant. In 1984, she served as the chairperson for the National Advisory Council on Women. In 1985, she led the Jamaican delegation to the United Nations End-of-Decade Conference in Nairobi, which dealt with the elimination of discrimination against women. In 1986, she served as the Executive Director of Caribbean Women for Democracy. Committed to the cause of women's political empowerment, she was an active member of Jamaica Women's Political Caucus. In 2014, she launched the Jeanette Grant-Woodham Education Foundation, providing scholarships to needy students attending Tivoli Gardens High. She also served the University of the West Indies, the Council of Community Colleges, the Caribbean Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, and the University of Technology. Mrs. Grant-Woodham leaves behind sons Omar, Richard, and Gavin. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
Despite Jamaica's small size, the island boasts one of the best performing stock markets in the world. For the latest look at our indices and other key market indicators, let's now join Gabrielle Thompson as she brings us the business report.
In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 1,873 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 81 stocks, of which 43 advanced, 29 declined, and 9 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 42 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Barita Investments Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 Preference Shares, Dermont Trading Company, and Jetcon Corporation Limited. Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited was the volume leader with 1.9 million units, followed by JMMB Group Limited with under 900,000 units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with under 800,000 units. Now for the foreign exchange, the US dollar on Tuesday, September 8 ended trading at $145.91. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $110.44. The pound sterling traded for $193.20, and the euro ended trading at $175.15. Oil futures clawed back some of the losses they sustained in the previous session, but a rebound in COVID-19 cases in some countries undermined hopes for a steady recovery in global demand. Brent crude futures gained 44 cents to settle at $40.22 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 50 cents to $37.26 a barrel. Both major oil benchmarks are trading close to 3-month lows. And that's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The Ministry of Health says diabetes currently affects almost 250,000 Jamaicans. 4 out of 10 persons with diabetes are unaware that they have it. That data from a Jamaica Health and Lifestyle survey. In the following episodes of Living Healthy, Simone Absalom gets a lesson from naturopathic physician Dr. J.D. Wood on the internal chemicals that result in diabetes and an external one that contributes to it.
Diabetes is a lifelong disease in which the body fails to make insulin or to properly use insulin that it makes. Insulin is a hormone needed for the body's ability to use food. Without careful management, diabetes can lead to a buildup of sugar in the blood, which can increase the risk of dangerous complications such as stroke and heart disease. Naturopathic physician Dr. J.D. Wood tells us more.
Diabetes basically is the absence of the maintenance of normal blood, value, the sugar value in the blood. In other words, the blood carries glucose after the food is digested, takes it into the blood and distributes it through to the cells of the body, all the cells of the body, in order to provide the body with fuel for energy for all the tissues and all the organs of the body. The big problem is that when the sugar in the blood loses its equilibrium or its real value in the blood, it is either too high or too low, we end up with a condition called diabetes, We have two types of diabetes. We have type 1 diabetes, which really is the problem by which the pancreas is underproducing insulin, because it is the insulin that drives the sugar out of the blood into the cells in order to give the cells energy for functionality. So the cells will not function for you to grow or for you to repair itself or for all the organs to work unless they have enough sugar. Just like how gasoline is necessary to drive your vehicle, this is how the sugar works. In other words, the sugar is the gasoline for the body. So the pancreas then is a very critical organ. It produces insulin and glucagon, and these two enzymes regulate the amount of sugar within the body. When the sugar level goes down, the glucagon will signal to the liver to release the storage of sugar in order to maintain the amount that is in the body, in the blood system. When it is too high, the glucagon will also signal that you need to take out the sugar and store it in the liver for other uses, for you to dance and for you to fight and for you to play games and enjoy yourself. So these two enzymes are fantastic. They are working together for the normalization of the sugar in the blood. Because, you see, it is so critical that if the sugar in the blood is too low, you're going to get sick. And if the sugar in the blood is too high, you're going to get sick. So in type 2 diabetes, what is happening is that the pancreas is underproducing both glucagon and also the insulin, right?
Dr. Wood says incidences of diabetes is a global pandemic.
The fundamental problem with diabetes is that we are eating too much junk food, denatured food, processed foods. White rice and white flour should not be fed to a dog, because all it does, it puts a lot of stress on the pancreas to produce insulin. Now, if you are eating too much starchy food like dumpling and yam, some people like dumpling, yam, breadfruit, cocoa, and banana. If you feed like that, what really happens is that we have what is called the glycemic factor of a food. For example, bread has 100, is measured as 100 glycemic factor, right? That means as soon as you eat it, in other words, the higher the number is, the quicker it passes into the bloodstream in the form of glucose or glycogen. What really happens is that the bread itself and white rice and white flour has about 100. That means it is so high that as you eat it within 10 minutes, the food is converted into glycogen and demands the rapid release of the insulin. When that happens, the body miscalculates the amount of insulin that should be released, and it releases too much. Therefore, it drives the sugar in your blood too low, and you get what is called hypoglycemia.
Dr. Wood says his research shows that diabetes is linked to a chemical called methanol or methanol.
Methanol is really derived from the distillation of wood. It is used in the production of household articles and industrial and commercial substances, right? Now, it is a natural alcohol that is produced from the deterioration or the rotting of wood or organic material. Now, when you have a poison, the FDA or EPA have a regulation to say if a product is poisonous or toxic, you must label it with a principle of caution, meaning low toxicity, or warning, which is a higher toxicity, and danger poison, which is the highest. Now, the methanol has the highest labeling for toxicity, which describes it as danger poison.
Since methanol is a natural element, why is it so dangerous?
The issue is that we are bombarded with it. That is the dilemma. I call it the methanol dilemma. We are bombarded with, so I'm listing all these things to give you an idea of the complexity of the problem. It is in cosmetics like estrogen. It is used in medicines. It is called an homostatic. In medicine, if you get a cut, the medical people can use it to suppress hemorrhage. So you see the extent of it. It is used in fuels, right? Shellac, things like that.
We'll hear more from Dr. Wood in the next Living Healthy report.
In regional news, a mother of a 20-year-old who died last month at the Princess Margaret Hospital in the Bahamas is speaking out again after health officials confirmed the death of the 20-year-old woman from COVID-19. The grieving mother says she is waiting to hear from officials. Jared Higgs reports.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
If Shekinah Dean were alive today, no doubt she would have been singing to her newborn son.
She would say, Mommy, I'm in a better place. I don't need you to take care of Kyrie.
Dean was just 20 years old when she died at PMH on August 26. Just over a day later, her mother, Karen Dean, informed us that her daughter had tested positive for COVID-19 during her hospital stay. Our News' inquiries with Ministry of Health officials were not acknowledged, but on Saturday, health officials revealed that a 20-year-old woman died from COVID-19 on August 26. The grieving mother is left to make assumptions.
I haven't heard anything. Shekinah isn't a special patient, but in terms of her treatment at PMH, I figured someone should have reached out to me already, give their condolences, but I haven't heard anything from the Ministry of Health.
The Public Hospitals Authority declined to comment when reached by the Nassau Guardian on the matter today. The pregnant 20-year-old was admitted to hospital on August 16th after she vomited blood. Her death makes her the youngest person to die from COVID-19 during the pandemic. Dean says she was in touch with her daughter throughout her hospital stay and heard her daughter cry for help one night to no avail. Still, she says she saw positive signs and thought she would pull through.
She was on her way to recovery because she came of total fluids from drips and eating ice to now drinking water, being able to drink apple juice and eating food, and the next day she was gone.
When we first interviewed Dean back on August 27th, she made it clear that she was deeply concerned with the care her daughter received. The PHA said the woman's death and claims that she received poor care were under investigation. Since then, though, social media has been rife with stories of poor treatment being meted out by some nurses. Dean says now she wishes her daughter stayed with her.
You at home, you can't do nothing. You can't go there, you can't assist her. And you know, you're the person that is there for her at all times. And now at this point, at least I didn't even know that she was dying at this point. You can't help her.
The grieving mother says instead of planning vacations with her daughter, she has a difficult task of planning her funeral. She also has a huge responsibility. Shekinah's 20-day-old son, Kyrie. The whole ordeal was overwhelming at times.
My daughter cannot be replaced. She cannot be replaced. I'm wearing her on a shirt. I never dreamed I would wear my daughter on a shirt, my 20-year-old daughter on a shirt.
Dean says she's getting by with the support of family. She promises to raise her grandson like her own. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
One non-governmental organization in Trinidad and Tobago, with the support of a small business, is doing its part to ease the burden of those severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The NGO for the Love of Reading has fostered a partnership with a pharmacy to help those in need. Sherilyn Lewis reports that the NGO is seeking essentials such as food supplies.
Ara Cleghorn says she's always had a passion for helping those in need, and during this COVID-19 pandemic, she realized many persons are still without food due to either job loss, reduced pay, or poverty. So Ara and her mom came together to launch a free food bank. It allows persons in need to simply access food items for free. Ara then partnered with the proprietor of MTA Pharmacy, who was more than happy to assist in the effort and lend some space in his pharmacy.
You know, they're struggling due to the hard times, but I've been very impressed with how respectful they have been. They never take more than they need. They always take 1 or 2 items from the shelf. And surprisingly, like they would actually come back, and when they are in a better position, they themselves donate to the shelves. We had about at least 3 folks that, you know, when they started back working after COVID, they came and they donated to the shelf.
Mr. Ali says, seeing as it's a new initiative, it took some time for the idea to catch on.
It was a bit slow at first, but you know, every week it's slowly grown, and now it's become a force to be reckoned with. The community members have been donating anywhere from 1 or 2 bags of flour to filling the entire shelves on a weekly basis. The Cleghorns keep the initiative up by donating as well. And the pharmacy actually puts a set amount of goods every week to maintain the shelves. But there's been a tremendous outreach from the community.
ARA is also using the opportunity to implement a literacy initiative where persons can access and donate books for free. This, she says, is important as more persons are home due to the pandemic.
So we started it without the requirement to exchange books, but just as a sort of open give and take so that anybody can come to one of our locations, take 1 or 2 books. It's completely free, and similarly people can donate as many books as they like at any time.
And for those with an appreciation for music, a corner of the pharmacy has been dedicated to a piano and guitar for free use by music lovers. For the Love of Reading was established since 2018. Sherilyn Lewis, TTT News.
In Barbados, the African Heritage Foundation is increasing pressure on the government to change laws to allow the Rastafarian community to use cannabis in their places of worship and their homes.
As such, the foundation's president, Paul Simba-Rock, has announced the launch of the civil society group, Cannabis Barbados, which he said would be a voice for the people.
But I think that the voice of the people, you know, needs to be heard. And outside of the farms, you know, the industry, you know, the cannabis industry overall, you know, not just the medicinal industry, you know, you have recreational use, and that is a big industry. When the government comes to that realization towards that eventually, but as I said before, eventually doesn't work for me. So I think that the time to seek liberation is always now, you know. So that in a nutshell is Cannabis Barbados, and we want to invite persons to come on board, you know, to join the movement, to join Cannabis Barbados, and help us with the initiatives and the things that we have to do, or we intend to do, as it pertains to cannabis education, cannabis justice, cannabis equality.
Speaking during one of the foundation's virtual sessions on the topic cannabis legislation, a matter of constitutional and human rights, Rock said that the continued prohibition of cannabis in Barbados was nothing more than tyranny and oppression, adding that human rights were being infringed instead of protected by the law.
And in the light of our Black Lives Matter environment, this matter of cannabis legalization is very, very important. Jamaica, St. Vincent, and increasingly more in countries are trying to find a way to deal with the demand from civil society to regulate the market. Very often, they opt for the medical cannabis option, which of course not entirely useful for the demands of the society, but it is a first step. But the first step most take is to decriminalize people who use cannabis. That is very important. You know, I spoke about that earlier. Almost all, if not all, the other countries and islands, their first step was to sort of decriminalize, you know, people like myself who use cannabis. Jamaica was one of the first to do it, and an increasing number of countries are doing it.
In sports, we bowl off with cricket. The St. Lucia Zouks and the Trinbago Knight Riders will face off on Thursday to claim the top spot in the Caribbean Premier League, the CPL. Both teams booked their places on Tuesday in comprehensive semi-final wins. In the first match, the Knight Riders swept aside the Jamaica Tallowers by 9 wickets, while in the second fixture, the Zouks skittled perennial finalists Guyana Amazon Warriors for the second lowest team total in CPL history and blazed to victory in just 27 balls to complete one of the most dominant performances in T20 history. On Tuesday, the Swiss Supreme Court determined that South Africa's double Olympic 800-meter champion, Caster Semenya, cannot compete until she accepts to be treated with hormone-suppressing drugs. The court dismissed the appeals submitted by Semenya and her Athletics Federation against the decision by the Court of Arbitration for Sports on eligibility regulation for differences of sexual development, DSD athletes. World Athletics banned Semenya and other DSD athletes from races between 400 meters and a mile unless they take testosterone-reducing drugs. Semenya is classified as a woman, was raised as a woman, and races as a woman. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.